Michael Fabricant is a 72-year-old Tory who's been MP for Lichfield since 1992. And yet the first thing he tells me when I sit down to discuss his Twitter use with him is that he gets 22 million interactions each month.
I remember reading a book many years ago on the history of the BBC in the Second World War. And one of the reasons why the old BBC Empire Service, now the BBC World Service, was such a success in the Second World War, and also the transmissions it did in German to Germany, which had far more impact in Germany than the German propaganda broadcaster Britain ever had, was because of the mixture that they employed of not only news and facts and a tiny bit of propaganda, but also humour, music, comedy shows, and so on and so forth. And it was that mix that was so appealing. And that's how I used Twitter, to try and be of interest to people, to be quirky, because nobody's interested in a bore. And a lot of MPs and other people are rather boring on Twitter, just going on about the same old thing. Now, I can do that at times. I get carried away and start bagging on about the same old subject. But most of the time, I try and provide some variability.
Is it a fine line between trying to be entertaining and saying things that MPs should not be saying in public?
Oh, very much so. I mean, I quite often say things that I shouldn't be saying, and then you get the Twitter storm with thousands and thousands piling in. But then I look at my list of interactions and it's popped up to 30 million, and I think, oh, it's not all bad then. They might all hate me, but you know what? I'm getting a message across.
Is it ever stressful when you're in the middle of one of those real storms? I know it's happened to you from time to time. Do you ever oh my God, this is awful, or are you able to just shrug it off?
Well, sometimes it's awful, but most of the time I shrug it off. I mean, quite often, when people go on about my looks, my hair, or making comments about, being a Tory, or, I sometimes highlight it, and retweet it. You can't be a shy person on Twitter.